Greetings, everybody. It is I, Steve, and it is also March 30th, 2021. We all know what that means. Another day, another video. But before we get to that, remember, as always, to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. I'm always posting new stuff there for you. The link to that is in the description with this video, along with the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages closely related to the content that I am posting both here, as well as my other YouTube channel, Steve the Amateur Historian. Do all that, help my channel grow, and miracles will happen in your life. Probably. All that said, I got a new story for you. I don't know why I ended that so awkwardly. It was... So this particular story, I'm mostly covering because of the method with which it was written. It wasn't really written like your typical news story. It was almost written like a because it wasn't that creative, but it was almost like a semi-creative piece that you would see like in a magazine or something with like an element of satire to it. But it was an article published in a newspaper back in 1939 when a few teenage boys went a little astray. And the article is literally titled, excuse me, I'm tugging at my hair, but it's literally titled, Rootin' Tootin' 14-year-olds Caught by the Law. Is that accurate? Oh, Caught by Law. Either way, you know you're in for a very bizarrely written article when you have the terms rootin' tootin' in there. Granted, you know, it's the end of the 30s, we're going into the 40s, and people are trying to get a little bit more lit. They've been dealing with the Great Depression for the past, decade. We're not quite into World War II yet. We're kind of in this place where one's kind of going away, but the other one's kind of building up, and people just want to get a little lit from time to time. And in this case, we're talking about a couple 14-year-olds out in Eastern Oregon who decided they wanted to get real lit one night. So the two 14-year-olds in question are Lloyd Price and Leroy Carroll. Two 14-year-olds that decide they want to go out and be, as the story writes, they want to be like bandits in the Old West. They want to get their six-shooter in their pocket or their, gun belt. They want to hop on their horses. They want to roll into town. They want to rob a bank and ride off into the sunset with all of their money, knowing that they're a couple of badasses. But of course, it's not, it's rural Eastern Oregon. It's a little Old Westy, but we're not really in the Old West anymore. So instead of having some nice Mustangs to ride, as the story suggests, they stole a beat-up old car and managed to steal an actual six-shooter. So at least they got that kind of element of the story right. So they just stole, a few items. And they decided to go out and raise some hell in this beater car with this six-shooter that they probably, I don't even know if they really knew how to use it. So they, first things first, as they want to start dabbling in robbery, there's no real description whether these two young boys had any prior history of crime or if they both just decided, screw it, we're going to live while we're young. But they drove their beater car to a post office in Haines, Oregon, which I don't know. I've heard the name. I'm not exactly sure where exactly that is on the general Oregon map. But they went to the post office there, deciding to rob it. I know there's money in a post office, but why would you rob a post office when you could rob, or at least try to rob, a bank or a store? Maybe they thought hitting something a little less predictable might yield more successful results. And they got away, so I guess you could say they were successful, but they also only managed to steal like 35 cents. They got away with 35 cents. So that's, even in 1939, that's not really a great haul in terms of your first instance going out raising hell and robbing a place. So they've already robbed a post office. And the gun that they had, the, Wild West six-shooter, was described as a rusty old gat in the story. And they managed to also steal some, like, candy bars. So that was, like, the food they were relying on, as opposed to, as the article writes, the venison and beans and bacon that a man out on the run, living, cooking their food over campfires in the middle of the desert and all that. But these kids just stole some candy bars because, I mean, they were teenagers. What would you expect? And so they just raised hell in kind of these back roads, small towns of Eastern Oregon. But of course, being young and foolish, they raised all this hell and didn't really do much of a job of kind of, maintaining any kind of low profile at any point, and staying, just, yay length ahead of the long arm of the law. So they were eventually tracked down and, caught, and they were just a couple of, radical renegade runaways, as it was kind of described. And again, the best part of the whole thing is the way the article's written, because it's a short article, but it's just constantly referencing these old school kind of cowboys and outlaws type thing, and talking about the kind of food they should have been eating when they were eating candy bars, and now they had a six-shooter, but it was really just some beat up gun that they stole, and instead of having a horse, they had a car that they lifted. And even by the end of the article, they're like, they didn't go out the way that the old outlaws did, riding off into the sunset or having a shootout with the police, hiding behind rocks up in the hills and periodically, taking pot shots down at the troopers below. But instead, the kids were caught. They, confessed to they couldn't really deny what they'd done. And the article ends by mentioning that instead of going out the way the old outlaws did, they were having a date set for them to go before a kind of juvenile court on charges of larceny and, of course, burglarizing a post office, which is no small thing. They probably got in a lot of trouble for their 35 cents that they managed to pilfer from this small post office. So none of it ended, none of it really went or ended the way that a Rootin' Tootin' type of story would go. But I thought it was entertaining that whoever wrote it... Is there a name to the article? No, I noticed a lot of articles back in the day, they didn't put who actually wrote them. Which makes sense. A lot of people that did various jobs weren't really given credit for it. I mean, movie credits used to not show pretty much any of the crew. So, I guess it makes sense. But whoever did write this, hats off to them for trying to have a little bit of fun with a random story of a couple of kids, going out and raising hell in their town and stealing a bunch of stuff and then eventually getting busted at the end of the night, and it really added up to nothing. By tweaking it and giving it a little bit of that Old West cowboy flavor, it actually made the piece kind of interesting to read, even as this little old relic of, like, 1939 America. And, kids going crazy. Someone's calling me. Rainier, Oregon. I don't know who that could be, so I ain't answering it. That ain't my job. My job is to bring you content, and good, I think they hung up. And trying to do the best I can. Nope, didn't hang up. So I'm just gonna talk through that because the story is done, and I would like to thank you so much for watching today's video. And they did hang up. And remember, as always, if you want to help a little channel like mine grow, remember to like the videos, share, subscribe to the channel, hit up my Patreon if you want to help me out that way. I'm always posting new stuff there to give you bang for your buck. The link to my Patreon is in the description below, along with the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages, closely related to the content I am producing both here, as well as my other primary YouTube channel, Steve the Amateur Historian. If you haven't subscribed to that channel yet, what are you waiting for? Go do it. You'll like it. You'll thank yourself later. You won't regret it. And all that said, this has been Steve, and I'll see you tomorrow.